yeah, it's been, I feel like the setting and the vibe that the podcast I do gives off is sort of like a much more laid back conversation where you get to know these athletes. We unpack like some of their biggest performances, whether it's, throughout their career or, their most recent one, if they just broke like a record or something like that. But, yeah, it's been 3 years, I guess, since I started doing this. I haven't listened back to the very first episode, but I'm sure it was not as good as maybe some of the more recent ones. But it's been fun. Some of like my favorite episodes go on for like maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours sometimes. And so, yeah, and I've drawn inspiration in doing that from guys like Bill Simmons and the way he does his podcast. And I've been listening to a lot of Dak Shepard and Armchair Expert and the Rich Roll podcast. So, it's just kind of like getting those people to let their guard down for an hour or so and, kick it back and chat. So that's been fun. And so the podcast medium is definitely one that I don't foresee myself stopping anytime soon. It's been so much fun. And yeah, I'm gonna keep it going. I know I just calculated this past week. I've edited and produced more than 130 hours worth of podcasts in 2020 alone, and so I'm all in. It's so much fun for me.
Yeah, there's no looking back. It's really, I love podcasting. Obviously, I have a podcast, but I think it's also a great opportunity for athletes to just know they're not going to have that like gotcha journalism question
Hmm.
and get a chance to just lay back and, like you said, just talk normally for an hour and really let their guard down. I think
Oh, for
that,
sure.
yeah, that's how you get some of the best stuff. So, talk about why you wanted to first start a podcast and just building the Citius Mag podcast network in general.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to start it was because I hadn't done it in a while. I know I did it for a couple episodes of a show in 2014 with two former guys who worked at FlowTrack with me, where we would do like a weekly news show, just unpacking everything that happened in the sport. But that was kind of short lived because getting three people together and like the scheduling and then the editing, it just came to be like so much for me, and I didn't have that much time for it. So in 2017 when I launched Citius Mag, it was sort of like once again taking a page out of like Bill Simmons's approach to the way he created The Ringer, where it was like pop culture and humor and commentary. And so I was like, well, running really doesn't have that. And so I want to build a place out where I can do that, because right after I got back from the Olympics, I had a hard time with writing. I didn't believe writer's block was a real thing until it actually like hit me. And it was hard because I realized I'm so passionate about the sport, and I care about, little things like the Peyton Jordan Invitational and like the Florida relays and that kind of stuff. But to the regular Sports Illustrated reader, the guy who consumes, you know, MMQB columns and that kind of stuff and really follows the NBA, like track is not one of those big sports that pops off until it's either like the Olympic year or maybe the year before. So now I have this time in between to really have to figure out what I'm going to do, because before, from 2012 to 13 and 14, I was doing stuff with FlowTrack, and those are people who do care about sort of like the those tiny meets every single weekend. And so now that I'd reached kind of this point at Sports Illustrated, I had to kind of figure out, well, how am I going to do this? Because I'm still so passionate about it. So, I got permission from my boss to start a blog with my friends, and so I don't think they've anticipated it to be as big as it's become. But yeah, it was just I created it as a place to provide sort of that humor, that commentary, that relatability to runners. So it's not just like news and results. It was something different, and I never really podcasted much before that, but I was like, all right, well, if we're going to follow the Bill Simmons model, then we do need like a flagship podcast. And so I took it upon myself to start hosting it. And, just over the years, I've got contact information for so many professional runners and coaches and that kind of stuff that it was easy to just get people on the phone and be like, all right, let's chat for an hour or so. I'll record it and then I'll edit it and post and then do it. So that's kind of like how it got started. And, now I guess we're approaching 200 or so episodes, and it's been, yeah, it's a lot. And I'm very curious what the total runtime would be. Someone tweeted at me maybe about a year ago saying that they listened to every single episode in in like a couple span of a couple months. And I was like,
Wow.
that's pretty crazy. And I was like, I don't know how they haven't gotten tired of my voice. And because I do for sure, like listening back to some episodes, I'm like, man, you sound so whiny sometimes. But yeah, I'm not stopping the podcast anytime soon. And then kind of growing it beyond just my show. It was just, let's get creative and launch some other podcasts and platforms. So I teamed up with my friend Gene Mack to launch the Runners of NYC podcast, where as opposed to just interviewing professional runners, this is a show where we interview people with full-time jobs and have managed to qualify for the Olympic trials, or they saw something lacking in their community and they wanted to get more people active, and so they started their own run crews. And so New York is fascinating in that sense because it's so diverse,
Right.
and especially within the running community, there's so many running crews and these very vocal people. So it's getting to know them and sharing their story and amplifying it also to a national sort of audience, because it is on like the Citius platform. Like I I get messages sometimes from people who say that they're not even from New York, but they listen to the show and they enjoy it, and they have like it makes them curious about their next visit to New York, about getting involved and maybe joining one of these group runs for a day or so. So that's been rewarding. And and over time, we've launched an offshoot of different shows with Dana Giordano, who's like a professional runner for the Boston Athletic Association. She wanted to kind of do a show where she interviews just successful women within the industry, and so whether they were runners or coaches or entrepreneurs, like I was like, yeah, more power to you. Like, I love that idea. Let's do it. Scott Fauble, the marathoner, said he just wants to talk about movies with his friends, and so I was like, let's do that. That sounds like a lot of fun too. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm giving myself extra work in that sense, having to later on edit and sometimes record these podcast episodes. But I'm not. The reason why I do it is because there's moments I'll have, whether it's like at a marathon expo or a race, someone will just tell me like, hey, like I really enjoyed the podcast. And it's become, and I like that feeling, because if no one was listening to this stuff, then I probably would have given up on it a while ago. But the
Right.
fact that I see that it's going strong and continuing to grow, that's what keeps me going, and that's what makes me want to do even more, even though like it drains me and I don't maybe sleep as much as I should. uh, those moments are the rewarding part to it.
Yeah, that's really cool to be the Bill Simmons of your own network. How many podcasts do you have on the network in total right
Oh man, that's interesting. I think there's like a total of 8 or 9, but like two
now?
of them like aren't really like that active anymore. But there's like 6 or 7 that go strong, and that's the other thing too. Is like for me, I do all of this like in addition to my full time job with Sports Illustrated, which takes up my day usually from 9 to 5. Um, so I have to find the pockets of time to edit and produce some of these episodes. And so I think the area where I'm lacking is sort of like finding that sort of consistency where, all right, this is going to be like a Thursday show. We're going to drop it every single Thursday. For me, it's kind of like, all right, we record on Friday. I want to get this out to people as soon as possible. Maybe I'll drop it on Monday or,
Right.
uh, and so like, I guess maybe coming down to like an official set schedule is the one area where I could get better at. But for the most part, I think a lot of people still do understand like this is my passion project. Like um, it's not my full time job, and so in a way, they get it and they're appreciative. Like at least like I'm doing it. So.
Right. You're putting something out, whether it's every week or not, is the quality over quantity type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is very important. So that's really interesting. I was definitely interested to hear more about your career, and I want to jump over to your personal running career. If that's cool.
Yeah.
So, if I got this right, you're a member of the Brooklyn Track Club,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
so I found it really interesting when I was trying to find a track club that wasn't close enough because I'm out on Long Island, but I found it really interesting how they have like top tier runners and then everyday runners all in the same mix.
It's so interesting because yeah, that range is pretty crazy. We've got like sub 4 miler, I think we at least one, and then we've got like people who can complete a marathon in 5 or 6 hours. So like that's a crazy big range. And the group has grown to like 400 plus, I would think, at this point. And sometimes that means like a super crowded track. Like in normal times, like it would be maybe 150 to 200 people showing up on a Tuesday night. And that can definitely get crowded. And I haven't been back since March, just because of, you know, the pandemic, and I don't really feel a need that I need that many people around me to work out. So I've kind of scaled it down to like a much smaller bubble of mine, where maybe I've got like 5 training partners or so who I'll meet up with from time to time. But in normal times, yeah, it's a crazy huge group. And multiple people who have qualified for like the Olympic trials, and at least like in the marathon. And I think it's been a big benefit in my running because I joined them in late 2017. And ever since then, it's been big jumps in sort of like all my PRs, especially last year. I PR'd in every single distance. And so the reason I kind of credit the group toward that is because, you know, I've been able to find these people with the same like-minded goals and talent level, where if I need to get dragged on a tempo run, you know, I can pick a couple of people faster than me and then just go get after it. But also the accountability that comes on a Saturday morning in the summer to get out and run 18 to 20 miles during marathon training, like it helps when you have other people to do it. And so when it comes to, and people constantly ask me, it's like, what kind of advice would you give like a runner starting off, or anyone really? And it's just like, find your people and find your group, because and I understand like some places it's tougher based on like location and accessibility, but even if it's just one other person, it definitely helps, I think, to have someone else to keep you accountable and on a set schedule. And so for me, that's been the Brooklyn Track Club, and in particular, some of my training partners like Ryan Welsh and Zach Price. They've been like my go-to guys. And so yeah, I yeah, I think I've got a lot more PRs left in my legs, because you know, I was only a sprinter in high school, and so some of these distance races, like I'm just hitting my stride. So like I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah, nowhere to go but up. And yeah, that was huge for me because there was a period after I ran out all of my eligibility where I had been on, you know, high school and college teams for like 8 years or close to it, where I really needed that group to help motivate me. And I was really happy I found the Elite Feet, so Long Island Running Club, and they put on a bunch of different races. So I'm happy to be joining them. And like you said, have people similar talent level to help push you is a huge help. In the past on the podcast, and another reason I wanted to have you on is I like to ask people what breaking 5 minutes in the mile for the first time means to them, and I'm really happy to have you on because that's I know a big goal of yours. So, what is that going to mean to you when you finally break that barrier?
Man, I'm trying so hard to do it. Like it's crazy, because like I'm surprised it's taken me this long, and like I'm finding it this difficult. And so I in high school, my coach Pat Dormer would give T-shirts to anyone who broke the sub 5 mile, and on the back it'd say like sub 5 club. And now the high school kids have gotten so good to the point where breaking 5 was so easy. But back when I was there, like it was a bit tougher, and we weren't as good. And so I've joked around and told them, like, you got to hold one of those T-shirts for me. And so kind of the big motivation, the reason I'm doing it is kind of I want that T-shirt, and I want it to just kind of that's the cherry on top, I guess, for me, sort of, and like in sort of like this evolution I'm going through as a distance runner. It's funny because I don't think any of the guys who ran distance in high school with me are really running anymore. So I would definitely be the fastest currently for sure right now. But you know, once I break 5, it opens the floodgates to like, no, we're not just stopping at 4:59. I want to go after like 4:50 or something like that, because then that would definitely, I think, cement me as the fastest guy in my high school class. So when it comes to just sort of like people in my life who've been runners, it's definitely a lot of my high school buddies. My best friends from high school were all on the track team. And so if I can hold that title in life, it would be awesome. But yeah, I'm chipping away. I'm down to 5:09, which comes out to like a little bit more than 2 seconds per lap. It's coming. It's coming. I got to keep at it. we're fortunate that like the weather's still a little bit nice out where I could maybe
I
get
cut you
another
off
attempt in.
real quick. We can only record for 30 minutes at a time, so we're gonna pause it and come right back.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So we'll just keep going with that. Jump